Welcome back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. With the shake of a mouse and the click of a key on a laptop, criminals can steal your house from right underneath you. What's arguably even more concerning is that it can all happen without you even knowing about it. Home title theft and deed fraud is a growing epidemic, and there are few laws on the books to protect you, and that's why you have to be able to protect yourself. James Finch is an expert in information security. He's also a former head of the FBI Cyber Division. He joins me this morning to discuss. Mr. Finch, good to see you.
It's good to see you, Clarence. Thanks. Thank you for having me, Terrence. And by the way, early happy Independence Day.
Likewise, happy 4th of July to you as well. Let's talk about home title theft and how people can protect themselves, because this is really an epidemic, and it's something, unfortunately, many people don't realize has happened to them until it's too late.
This is true. This is true. And, you know, I'd like to tell your viewers about house stealing, but I would ask them, when was the last time they checked their home's title to see if their name is still on it, if they're still the owner? Let me tell you a short story about a young lady from Houston whose grandmother passed away and left her the home. Unfortunately, there were back taxes and she couldn't afford the taxes. And so the county worked out a payment plan. So she paid on this home for months in anticipation of moving in. And when she finally paid off the back taxes, she discovered her home had been stolen. She wasn't notified by the county, and now she has to find money to pay an attorney. If she had had Home Title Lock's $1 million triple lock protection, she would have been alerted when someone tried to change her title. Home Title Lock's $1 million triple lock protection monitors your home's title 24/7. And that's the first lock of that triple lock protection. The second lock of that triple lock protection is if there's any change to your home's title, you will be alerted. And if you did not make that change or authorize that change, the third lock of that triple lock protection will kick in, which is the title restoration. There's a U.S.-based title restoration team, Home Title Lock has, and they will spend up to $1 million to restore your home's title back into your good name. Your viewers should go to HomeTitleLock.com and educate themselves about house stealing and how they can prevent themselves from becoming a victim of house stealing or title theft.
So what you've just described is a proactive measure. Unfortunately, there are all too many people who have to be reactive. You mentioned the woman who lost her home and she ended up having to spend a lot of money on an attorney. I would imagine that it's rather challenging to try to get your title back once someone has taken it and signed it over to themselves.
Yes, the burden falls on the homeowner to prove that they did not take out the loans on the home that the bad guy took out, and they have to find an attorney, and attorneys, as we all know, they are not cheap. But with Home Title Lock, we will spend up to $1 million in attorney fees to restore your home's title. So that is not a worry. This is an emotional and financial nightmare. It's devastating to the homeowner.
And I think what's most important about what you described from Home Title Lock is that they are watching. They are a watchdog for you. Most of us have a dog to secure our homes inside, but this Home Title Lock is a watchdog to secure your home at the county level, if you will.
Yes, it is. And they monitor your home's title 24/7. Most people don't realize their home's title is a matter of public information. It's publicly available to anyone. And a bad guy, all he has to do is forge your name on one simple document that's downloaded from the internet, fill out that document in its entirety, stamp it with a fake notary stamp that is easily acquired over the internet, pay the small filing fee, and file it with the county recorder's office. And that's it. For all practical purposes and intent, the bad guy now owns your home.
Well, folks, if you heard that and you're not scared yet, then I don't know what to tell you. All the information is there on your screen, HomeTitleLock.com/newsbreak. You can go there to get all of the information you need in order to be proactive and to protect yourself and your home. Well, that's going to do it for this Real America's Voice Newsbreak. Thanks so much for being here with us.
right, riding into another brand new day. Glad to have you here. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We've got a lot to cover today from the Foxhole Freedom here in Studio G. Warning, the Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride and optimism and uncontrollable enthusiasm for America's future. Never more true than today. Kicking off the live broadcast and Real America's Voice and MTN networks and reaching a growing global audience, this is the Steve Gruber Show, a no-panic zone. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, Sandy Cortez. That's how the kids remember AOC from her suburban high school, which pretty much destroys her whole I'm a tough kid from the Bronx idea. Not true at all, in fact, but why are we learning now? Number two, the University of Pennsylvania has folded to President Trump, dumping men in women's sports and issuing an apology to the women that represent the Ivy League school. Oh, and getting rid of all of Leah Thomas's, or whatever his name was. All of the records, all of the wins gone. And number three, this is a big one. President Trump on a roll this week. In fact, he's been on a roll for a couple of weeks of great news cycles and leadership at home and abroad. We're halfway through the year, and he's still working tirelessly on making America great again. He's probably in the Oval Office as we speak, while visiting Florida's newest detention center Tuesday, a place dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. The president answered a variety of questions on topics that many of us are very concerned about. In fact, he took questions from just about everyone in the press pool for a while. He does this all the time. You see, he has a big plan for securing our elections, he says, a move that would greatly increase the value of the American vote by redoing the census. This would be huge. Listen.
We want to bring our elections back. The election in 2020 was rigged, millions and millions of votes. It had to do with COVID and a lot of things, but it really had to do with the crooked people. The Democrats are very good at cheating on elections. And that's why I said too big to rig. They tried this one too. But after about 9:02, they gave up too many votes, too big to rig. Ron would love it. I would love it. Christie would love it. That's what they have to do. They have to bring it back. And we have to look, Ron, they include anybody that happens to be in your state.
Well, California would lose like 5 seats if they did a fair census. And even beyond that, the Biden census gypped Florida of at least 1 seat. We only got 1 seat in the last census. Are you trying to tell me that Florida only had 1 seat in that? We should have had at least 2. Texas should have had another one. That could be the difference in the House of Representatives and the majority. So I would love for them to redo the census for 26. My legislature will redistrict those lines. We'll get it to where it's fair. But as it's right now, this country is not fairly apportioned. I've got so many more millions of people in Florida that have representation because of that flawed census.
Oh, they're exactly right. Exactly right. Redoing the census before the midterms would be a major game changer. If it's legal or possible. I don't know if it's either. These Democrat-run cities and states that have prided themselves on their sanctuary status, and they stand to lose multiple seats if we redid the census and included questions about citizenship. This goes beyond non-citizens voting or not voting in our elections. You see, these blue states have been handed more representation than they deserve because they filled their towns with illegal aliens. It's high time we rectify that huge mistake. I wrote a piece at SteveGruber.com more than 12 years ago, ripping California because I believe California, Ron DeSantis had 5 seats. I believe it's 7 seats that California has in Congress they do not deserve because they're counting illegal aliens. It seems that everything comes back to immigration, to legal immigration, to securing our border. You see, Florida's a shining light for states on how they can do their part. Florida's opening up that detention center that I just said will be known as Alligator Alcatraz. It's a thing of beauty. I'll let President Trump give you some details. Listen to this.
And it's a great honor to be deep in Florida, the Florida Everglades, to open America's newest migrant detention center. It's incredibly built, and you're seeing that yourself. That's why I said let the press join us on our walk so they can see what's happening. It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation, and a lot of these people are self-deporting back to their country where they came from. Quite a few. We're amazed at actually the number. We took the FEMA money that Joe Biden allocated to pay for the free luxury hotel rooms, where he's paying hundreds of millions of dollars in New York City, and we used it to build this project. And Your Honor, was just a little fraction of that money, the money they spent on that.
Yeah. It seems that him and the president, Ron DeSantis, are buddies these days. It's good to see, by the way. DeSantis, a very good governor, maybe the best in the country right now. And Trump, well, it's Donald Trump. Governor Ron DeSantis is taking his state security seriously, one of many reasons why the Sunshine State is booming in every aspect. He won't be sending violent illegal aliens back on the streets to harm Florida's legal residents, and he won't be setting them loose with a court date that's 3 years in the future either. He's got a brilliant plan for fast-tracking immigration hearings so that the beds at Alligator Alcatraz can stay open. Listen to this.
This is we're offering up our National Guard and other folks in Florida to be deputized to be immigration judges. We're working with the Department of Justice for the approvals. I'm sure Pam will approve. But then I'll have a National Guard judge advocate here. Someone has a notice to appear. Biden would tell them to come back in 3 years and appear. Now you'll be able to appear in like a day or two, so they're not going to be detained, hopefully, for all that long. We'll have people here in this facility that can make, it's a bureaucracy. The president's got to deal with the bureaucracy. Now, that Supreme Court ruling was good because that's going to allow him to be able to exercise Article 2 the way founders intended, but you still have bureaucracy. So we want to cut through that so that we have an efficient operation between Florida and DHS to get the removal of these illegals done.
It's a genius idea. I hope more states follow suit. It makes a huge difference to have a president who supports and encourages these kinds of policies instead of one that does everything to throw the borders wide open. By the way, Alligator Alcatraz there is a converted airport. It was an airport to begin with, an airfield. You know what the beauty of that is? If you bring in illegals and you have a group that are going back to El Salvador or Venezuela or Haiti or wherever, just put them on the plane right there and send them out. You're in Florida. You're halfway there. Thanks for stopping in. Adios. Remember up-and-coming communist Zoran Memdani? Zoran the moron. Yeah, the radical Democrat from Uganda who's running in New York's mayoral election. How could you forget? He's an open borders fanatic, too, who plans on fighting ICE every step of the way. But President Trump says not on his watch. He had something to say about that. Listen.
Mr. President, your beloved New York City. Your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zoran Mandami, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zoran Mandami.
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government. We're going to be watching that very carefully. And a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. We're going to look at everything. And ideally, he's going to turn out to be much less than a communist. But right.
Yeah, communism, no place in America. More on that after the break right here on the Steve Gruber Show. Yeah, the takeaway at the end of the last segment there. Communism really has no place in America. In fact, the Constitution guarantees a Republican form of government, which means communism could never legally be the American government system. Trump is exactly right. I trust that a strong message will be sent to Mamdani if he tries to turn New York City into some communist hellhole, but it's already headed that way. The biggest development in Trump's agenda yesterday, though, was the one big beautiful bill, as you know. One big beautiful bill passing in the Senate with some modifications, close, the 50-50 vote. J.D. Vance had to step in, break the tie. Now, like many of you, I've got mixed feelings because the reconciliation bill is a mixed bag. Some of it's a blivet. You know what a blivet is? It's 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound sack. But let's talk about some of the wins here. Some of the good stuff here first. It permanently extends the signature Trump-era 2017 tax cuts for working Americans. Good stuff. Something that could increase your family's take-home pay by as much as $10,000 a year, along with the promise of no taxes on tips, overtime, or Social Security made into reality. It ramps up spending on military, making room for the development of a missile defense system like the Golden Dome, as it's called, and significantly bolsters border security, which President Trump has argued is the most consequential budget item for all Americans. Here's what he said.
In total, the average illegal alien costs American taxpayers an estimated $70,000. That's each. $70,000. I think that number is even low. If you care about balancing the budget, the single most impactful step we can take is to fully reverse the Biden migration invasion. One of the worst invasions we've ever had. We've never had an invasion like this. We've had invasions, but we've taken care of them. We've never had an invasion like this, and it's with us. And we have some very bad people out there looking to do big harm. That's why the one big, beautiful bill includes funding for 3,000 new Border Patrol officers and 10,000 new ICE agents. And I've gotten to know the Border Patrol and ICE very well.
Yeah. Removing illegal aliens from our country changes everything. It creates space in our social services for Americans who actually need the help. It cools off the housing market, which could also use the help. It could make insurance less expensive. It gives law enforcement a breather. Trump's right about all of it. It's important. So how are we going to pay for it? The tax cuts, the military, the border, that's the big question. The bill answers it in part. It tightens restrictions on Medicaid and SNAP benefits. If you're an able-bodied adult under the age of 65 and you don't have kids younger than 14 at home, you need to be working at least 80 hours a month to qualify for these benefits. Sounds reasonable. You need to give to society before you take from it. You see, we're not communist. An estimated 1.4 million illegal aliens alone will be removed from these benefits as a result of this bill. There's some confusion about this, but apparently they are going to go. And then there's the rollback on EV credits. It's an end to Joe Biden's poorly named Inflation Reduction Act and places additional taxes on products that are made in China. Another big win for conservatives, the bill defunds Planned Parenthood. You, the taxpayer, are no longer on the hook for abortions you might oppose in the first place. But here's where some of the conservatives take issue. At the end of the day, the Senate still voted to raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. An extra trillion from what the House voted for. Trillions of dollars. It's the one thing that got Elon Musk slamming the entire bill. Again, listen.
America is also going bankrupt extremely quickly. And everyone seems to be sort of whistling past the graveyard on this one. You know, the Defense Department budget is a big budget, okay? It's $1 trillion a year, DOD, Intel, it's $1 trillion. And interest payments on the national debt just exceeded the Defense Department budget. They're over $1 trillion a year, just in interest, and rising. We're adding $1 trillion to our debt, which our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay somehow.
Yeah, we're paying $1 trillion in debt servicing. Now, the rift between Trump and Musk is showing again. Elon promising to primary the Republicans who voted for this bill. Trump promising to send Doge after Elon and cut his subsidies. It's an ugly public fight. But I think the basic belief that the national debt is going to be our downfall if we don't do something about it is something that most of us can agree on. Either we get it right or we don't. Here's the critique from Rand Paul, who was one of 3 Republicans who said no to this bill. Here he is.
Maybe we have to judge the effects of the big, not-so-beautiful bill by looking at what happens to the debt next year. Supporters of the bill admit it adds $270 billion to the debt next year. That's the only thing we know for certain. We don't know what happens in year 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, but we know next year this bill will grow the deficit by $270 billion. In addition, the bill increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. What does that mean? That is an admission that they know they aren't controlling the deficit. They know that the ensuing years will add trillions more. So we're adding $2 trillion this year, but they're anticipating, the authors of the bill anticipating adding more than $2 trillion next year. That doesn't sound at all conservative to me, and that's why I'm a no.
Of course, the Trump administration takes issue with those numbers, claims that the calculations don't take into account all the economic growth that will be unleashed. Here's one of Trump's economic advisors. Listen.
Between all the president's policies, from the One Big Beautiful Bill, the deregulatory agenda, the energy abundance, they'll boost economic growth by about a percentage point. This brings in about $4 trillion more revenue. So whereas the Congressional Budget Office says this thing's going to cost $3.25 trillion, we say that's nonsense. You have to include the economic growth that's going to come as a result of the bill and the other policies from the president, and you add $4 trillion to that $3.25 trillion deficit, you get to plus $750 billion surplus. So there's lots of revenue that's coming in from economic growth and other sources that are going to bring the deficit down.
Okay.
All right, so what do you think? Does the bill deliver on the mandate you voted for, or is the national debt too big of an issue to overlook? It's America. You're entitled to your opinion. We'll take the wins where we can get them, like in the tax cuts and defunding Planned Parenthood, but I'll be eyeing the monster of our national debt with some concern. As long as it keeps growing, you should as well. We'll take a break and be back. Good morning. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Well, lost in all the noise yesterday, the United States Department of Education announced that the University of Pennsylvania has agreed to a resolution with President Donald Trump's administration to keep men out of women's sports. None of this trans nonsense any further. Leah Thomas further will be stripped of all championships, medals, whatever. UPenn will restore female athletes in Division I swimming records, titles, and similar recognitions which were misappropriated by male athletes allowed to compete in female categories. Huge win. They'll issue a public statement to the university community stating that it will comply with Title IX. It's going to apologize, is this Ivy League school, to everyone that was wronged by Leah Thomas and its bad behavior. It's utterly stupid behavior. Good for the University of Pennsylvania. No. Screw them. Good for Donald Trump. Good for Riley Gaines. Good for Riley Gaines for doing the right thing and putting the pressure on, putting the thumb screws to him. Are you frustrated by the gridlock in Washington and wonder why Congress just can't seem to get its act together most days? There's a way to understand how we got here, what can be done. Hillsdale College, my good friends there, present a free online course, Congress, How It Worked, Why It Doesn't, taught by Hillsdale's own Dr. Kevin Porteous. This course reveals the original purpose of Congress, and it's just one of the many magnificent courses you can find with my good friends at Hillsdale. You can see the video for those of you seeing it. These are incredibly well done videos. Don't binge watch Netflix. Don't binge watch Apple TV. Binge watch Hillsdale. You know why? Unlike those other two, Hillsdale is free. It's free. And you can get an education with some of the best production of anything you've seen. More than 40 different courses now from Hillsdale. You can learn all about it, about American history, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, C.S. Lewis, and Christianity in this country. Learn about all of it for free. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. I do it. I was watching it yesterday. It's good stuff, man. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. You're welcome. Give me some feedback on what you find out, by the way. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. Please check it out. I'll be back in just a moment. right, let's dive into this AI thing again. All right, look, I use AI every day, right? The AI has become my search engine. I don't use Google anymore. I use Grok, I'll be honest with you. Elon's platform, Grok is the AI that is on X. It seems to be more comprehensive. It seems to be more mainstream. It doesn't seem to have its information skewed too much one way or the other. And if it is skewed, or I feel that it is, I call out the program and say, wait a second, this is coming from an attitude that I don't like, and it will correct it. Well, AI was discussed in this big, beautiful bill, as you know, and we're going to have some impact from it. What is it? Well, Daniel Cochran's here, Senior Research Associate for the Center for Technology at the Human Person at the Heritage Foundation out there on the cutting edge of conservatism every single day. Daniel, welcome to the program.
Good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, so let's talk about this. The Senate overwhelmingly rejected a moratorium on AI control and oversight, if you will. That's my understanding, but I need you, the expert here. Sort this out with me. Tell the folks what this moratorium means, what it means going forward, and is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, so what Congress proposed was essentially a 10-year moratorium on states' abilities to pass laws related to AI. And that's everything really from the kind of AI that you use, right, like Grok, to the use of AI to generate, as an example, child porn. 37 states have laws on the books that say you can't use AI for CSAM. They've updated their laws to specifically address the AI age. Now, what Congress, if the provision had passed, what it would have done is it said they couldn't really enforce that kind of law for the next 10 years. Now, because of how the Senate works and because of the Byrd rule, some of your listeners may be familiar, the Senate basically connected the requirement to funding for rural broadband. And the problem with this is that it would virtually guarantee that the big blue states like California, New York they could forfeit the BEAD funding, their rural broadband funding, while the small rural states that rely on that funding, they'd be on the hook for it. So it really, unfortunately, the way the proposal was written, while some proponents, like they stress the need to push back in California, which I agree with, but because of the way the proposal was written, it would have taxed red states, not California. And so for that reason, I think that's a real problem.
And what we're trying to get to here, Daniel, my estimation here, and I agree with this point, we're trying to give some guardrails. We don't want child porn being created. We don't want deep fakes being made of political candidates, making it look like a candidate has done or said something that's completely false. We don't want any of that. We want to be able to protect against that. But at the same time, we don't want to restrict our ability to explore, to learn, to go forward, to beat the Chinese, to be quite clear, and to be on the cutting edge of AI technology, because whoever wins the AI battle might win the battle for supremacy on this planet, potentially. That's the game, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I think beating China is paramount. But again, the goal, one of the goals of this bill was stop California, New York, right? Because California, New York, as you know, they're imposing a woke agenda on AI and everything else. But the way that the proposal was written, it was linked to funding for rural broadband. California receives about $2 billion in rural broadband funding from the federal government. And California's budget is $327 billion. So California could have just ignored the moratorium, while smaller red states that need that funding, that have much smaller budgets, think Missouri, even Utah, those states would have been on the hook. So while the small red states wouldn't be able to pass common sense guardrails because of this, California would basically continue to just do what they want. So the problem is, again, the proposal, in some ways it sounds good, but in reality it would have actually gone the other way, and that's why we were really concerned.
Right, but it was rejected 99-1. I don't know who the one was. You probably.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Tom Tillis, actually. Yeah.
Well, of course, Tom Tillis. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Tom Tillis on his way out the door. Don't let the door hit you, Tom. Let me ask you something about broadband, rural broadband, if I may. You mentioned it a couple of times here. Isn't that a colossal waste of money? And I know that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are in a public food fight over God only knows what this time. But the fact of the matter is, There are technologies out there that are far superior to rural broadband. Starlink comes to mind. It would be Elon pointed this out a long time ago. It would be far cheaper to put Starlink up and provide internet service for all of these places at a fraction of the cost. Why wouldn't we do that?
So actually, under the Department of Commerce's revised guidance, they're actually trying to do something of that. So they're requiring states. So states receive these funds, and then the states give the funds to third-party entities that provide the infrastructure. And so basically one of the new guidance is, look, you have to look at infrastructure that is the most cost effective, and it has to be in some sense tech neutral. That's actually really good guidance, and I think that going forward, if states comply with the commerce guidance, then we could see, for instance, Starlink potentially be used. So I think this is a good example of where the administration's getting it right. Again, great idea on the broadband. We just don't want to handcuff states from passing common sense guardrails on AI that we're relying on increasingly every day.
I agree with that. Yeah, there's the broadband thing. I mean, it's just another example of government can't do things very well. We're talking about AI. We're talking about the cutting edge of technology. They can't build EV charging stations. They can't get internet service to small towns. That's why the government sometimes suspect. I think you're in the right place here. What should we do going forward with the AI, do you believe, Daniel, that would protect the consumers, protect the American way of life, and yet keep it wide open for innovation going forward so that we are on the forefront of technology here in America?
Certainly. Well, I think we need something of a national framework, right? So Congress needs to actually get its act together and pass legislation. We've been calling for that for years. And I think that framework needs to be flexible and adaptable, and that it needs to make sure that there's reserve a role for states to serve as laboratories of democracy and regulating how this technology is deployed, again, within certain parameters. That's, I think, how we balance the need for guardrails with the need for innovation.
I agree with you on that. Daniel, really appreciate you being here. Obviously, AI will be in the headlines probably for the rest of my life, so we'll have plenty of time to talk about this and other potential regulations that get proposed, good and bad, and all things in between. Daniel Cochran, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. All right, still to come, Peter McCullough will be here, talking about your health, talking about the COVID shots, talking about the parasites that are cruising around. It's a huge tick season, too. Did you know that ivermectin has become the go-to for cattle feed and for wildlife? Yeah, it's true. That way, the parasites don't survive. That's right, they don't survive that way. How about this story right here? You'll like this. If you live in one of the northern states, the WellConnect geothermal system could save you up to 90% on your utilities. It's a hybrid geothermal system. If you have a well in your yard, if you live out in the country, you have a well in your yard, you're halfway to a hybrid geothermal system. It's a remarkable system, patented by a University of Michigan engineer years ago. Thousands of these are in use already. You keep your furnace, you keep your air conditioner. This is an add-on to the system. It takes about 1 day. If you're a handy person, you can do it yourself, or you can get your favorite HVAC person to do it. This will cut your utilities dramatically. You want free air conditioning for the rest of the summer? There it is. WellConnectGeo.com, WellConnectGeo.com. Find out more. Look at it. WellConnectGeo.com. right, as many of you know, I was sick, I don't know, for 6 or 8 or 10 days here just recently. Pretty sure we had COVID, didn't go get tested, was not that concerned about it, but Ivy lost taste. So, that was one of the symptoms of COVID. I was sick for, 6 days, 7 days, whatever it was. She was as well, but didn't worry about getting tested. Certainly didn't consider going to get a vaccine, even though there's razor blade throat or whatever they're trying to scare us with now. Joining me, Dr. Peter McCullough, Chief Scientific Officer at the Wellness Company. Doctor, nice to see you here. No razor blade throat. Look, I've had a sore throat in my life. I've had terrible sore throats in my life. I'm not running off to get some vaccine. Is this the latest propaganda? What is this that we're hearing, sir? Good to see you.
Steve, where did this come from? Razor blade sore throat? Was this some CDC staffer trying to gin up interest in the most recent, COVID boosters in the fall? I mean, sure, sore throat can be part of a viral syndrome. The virus is always in the nose. The lymphatics drain back to the throat. So after about 5 to 7 days, there can be a sore throat. The way to prevent it was with daily nasal sprays and gargles, because get ahead of the virus. And of course, COVID-19, we are still seeing very rare cases now, but very responsive to ivermectin and the McCullough protocol.
Look, every day I feel like I see a new article, doctor, that talks about the negative impact of these COVID so-called vaccines. Every day, new revelations. People were injured. People died. There were problems. And you seem to understand, the more you read, that the companies behind it knew there were problems, and they shielded it or buried it or hid it altogether. It's frightening what they did, isn't it?
Steve, in our May 21st, 2025 U.S. Senate testimony, it actually produced a report. I just edited my section. It's clear both the pharmaceutical companies, largely Pfizer early on, then later Moderna, with the U.S. government, covered up serious side effects like heart damage or myocarditis. They should have gotten out ahead of this. I think the vaccine should have been pulled off the market very early or paused. Something is wrong, at least in some of the vials of the vaccine, that explain why people develop heart damage, blood clots, and other serious complications. 5 or 6 years into this, there is a long line of government and pharmaceutical officials and executives who are culpable for a large number of Americans who have been damaged. Sadly, some have died.
In your estimation, doctor, did the disease of COVID kill more people, or did the vaccine for COVID kill more people at the end of the day?
The analysis, this is shocking, but the vaccine caused more deaths than the illness. In 2023, the National Center for Health Statistics reported because a COVID death was someone who died during the pandemic but was test positive at any time. They didn't necessarily have to have the illness. The NCHS, they reported that half of the COVID deaths had no pneumonia in the chart. None. So they couldn't have died of COVID. So COVID deaths were grossly exaggerated. It's my estimation that if properly adjudicated, the real rate of COVID deaths would be about 10% of 1.2 million. So 120,000 COVID deaths. We are projecting now, based on a study out of Florida, as well as the VAERS system, we could be over 560,000 vaccine deaths.
Is there any reason? Can you come up with any scenario where a COVID vaccine would be appropriate today for anyone?
No.
No. It's that simple. It did so much damage, especially to young men and boys with that myocarditis, right? That was the big killer.
Steve, we still hear a push for vaccination of young people. Okay, so there are some parochial schools will still require it, and we don't hear about vaccination of our seniors in nursing homes. My mom is in a senior home. She says they haven't talked about them in years. Remember, it was the elderly that was at risk, not young people.
Yeah. Let me talk about this miracle drug, and it really is a miracle drug, the antiparasitic ivermectin. And I talk about this because, as you heard me say off the top of the program here, that I believe I had COVID. I didn't go test, wasn't that worried about it. But you said a man of my size should take, I think you said 48 milligrams of ivermectin to combat the disease. And when I had COVID in the end of 2021, I took ivermectin. I went from being very sick to almost healthy in a period of about 8 or 10 hours. People say, well, that's not possible. It's my experience. It's what happened to me. Ivermectin works. It knocks it down, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I've used it now thousands of times. It's safer than Tylenol. We just had to find the right dose, Steve. Someone, I mean, my size would take 36 milligrams a day. My wife recently got sick on a trip. We weren't sure if it was COVID or not. She's smaller. Gave her 24 milligrams a day for 3 days. Now, in addition to nasal sprays and gargles, everything else, McCullough protocol, boom, she's better.
There you go. And the other places that ivermectin does well is this parasite cleanse from the Wellness Company. I just went through it. Ivy and I did. Great product, great experience. A parasite cleanse. 60 million Americans have this. It's the hottest thing going from the Wellness Company, by the way, this parasite cleanse. And then I just read an article, and I looked it up because you said you hadn't heard this. Entomologytoday.org is the website. Entomologytoday.org. Feeding deer corn with tick control drug shows promise to eliminate ticks. It's a big tick year across the country. You probably know this, Lyme disease and all this. If you feed the animals ivermectin in their feed, boom, it knocks the tick population down. Another miracle for ivermectin, the wonder drug, isn't it?
It is, and boy, I tell you what, if there's some control over Lyme disease, it's going to be a bad year this year in the Northeast. We need it. The strategies have all been based on the humans, not on the deer. Remember, the deer have it, and the ticks transmit it.
That's right. All right. If you want more information about parasite cleanse or any of the great things at the Wellness Company, twc.health/Gruber. You'll save 10%. Right now, the parasite cleanse, you'll save $60, free shipping too. Dr. McCullough, always appreciate you being here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And feed your deer ivermectin. They won't have ticks either. It's a miracle all the way around on the Steve Gruber Show. Here's a little bit of evidence, and I don't know what's going on. I got this thing in my throat I can't seem to get rid of today. Hairballs again today on the program. I'm apologizing up front. If you send me an email, I do my best to read them. All right, that's my promise to you, and I do my best. I pretty much read all the emails. I do my best to respond to them. Here's how I know. Here's an email I got just moments ago. Hi, Steve. I say an AI mark, like a trademark, should be required on all things created by AI. Writings, video, audio, drugs, GMOs, agriculture, laws, legal decisions, all of it. So if a video comes out and it's of whatever, should have a little watermark maybe on it. An AI mark, like a trademark. An AI watermark on the end product, whatever it is. I'm okay with some form of that. I'm okay with some form of that. I think that has merit. That comes to me from Andy. Schwartz Creek, Michigan. Andy, there you go. That's my answer. I think you're onto something there. An AI required mark on things created by AI. Books, movies, videos, whatever it might be. Inventions, there it is. Andy, you're onto something. You can send me an email by going to stevegruber.com. Read Liberty Page. And by the way, Satire Saturdays from Liberty Page. Oh, she's funny. Yeah, you think the Babylon Bee is good? Liberty Page Satire Saturdays might be better. Just telling you. stevegruber.com. Do yourself a favor. Check out stevegruber.com. Send me an email. And if you do, I'll read it. I'm not going to say I'm going to read it on the air, but Andy was on the money with his AI observation. Well done, Andy. We have the smartest viewers, the smartest listeners in all of broadcast right here because you get up early. You drink coffee with me every day, and I appreciate that. I do. Thank you for being here. In the next hour, we're going to speak to the National Council of Resistance of Iran, the NCRI. One of their folks is going to be here to talk about the aftermath of the hit on the nuclear fields and facilities of Iran. What does it mean going forward? Can the Iranian people break the chains and break free? It'd be nice, wouldn't it? I'll be back on the Steve Gruber Show. Nice to see you.